She was young, scarcely 20, and her collapse was sudden and dreadful. The debutante's pale gown fluttered as she crumpled to the ground of the village tea-shop, her teacup exploding beside her. Miss Marple, seated only a few feet away, froze for a heartbeat, then caught the bitter almond note in the air. Cyanide, swift, deliberate. This was no fainting spell, but murder committed in plain sight. The room erupted in chaos. Chairs toppled, women shrieked, spoons clattered against saucers. The proprietor stumbled forward, white as flour, wringing his hands. "Fetch the doctor!" someone cried, but Miss Marple's voice cut through the noise with unexpected steel. "Too late. She is gone, and the poisoner is still among us." Her words froze them. Heads swung from one face to another, suspicion sparking. And then, before a heartbeat had passed, a second scream tore the air. A matron at the far table clawed at her throat, her face purple, her teacup tipping from nerveless fingers. She thrashed against her chair, knocking it sideways, her eyes bulging in agony. The crowd shrieked again. 2 deaths within minutes. No, 2 murders. The tea-shop had become a trap. Miss Marple moved quickly, surprisingly agile for her age. She knelt beside the second victim, pressing her thin fingers against the woman's lips, sniffing the residue at the rim of the cup. Again, that bitter almond. Her eyes narrowed. Same poison, same method. Not a coincidence, not an accident. A pattern, and already 2 corpses are cooling on the floorboards. She rose, her gaze sweeping the room. Everyone remains still. Do not touch another cup, another spoon, another crumb. The killer watches us, even now, studying every reaction. She saw it as clearly as if the word hung in the air. Someone in this room had planned both strikes, and worse, they had timed it for maximum terror. The killer wanted to panic. The killer wanted her to see. Through the open doorway, a young man burst in, panting, eyes wide. "What's happened?" he cried, but Miss Marple's sharp gesture silenced him. "Do not enter. Stay back." Her voice was steady, commanding. She could feel it already, the circle of fear tightening, the unseen hand moving pieces on a board. If 2 had fallen already, there would be more. She could sense it as surely as a chill before a storm. The crowd broke into frantic whispers. "Who's next? What's happening?" "It's the tea. It must be the tea." A woman threw her cup against the wall in terror. The shards scattered, tea staining the plaster. Another shouted, "It's her!" She's the one. She knew too quickly. Fingers pointed at Miss Marple, suspicion turning as easily as a weather vane in the wind. But before the mob could ignite, the door slammed open again. A third figure staggered in from the lane outside, an elderly man clutching his chest, gasping, his eyes wild. He collapsed in the doorway, foam on his lips. His walking stick clattered to the floor as he twitched and lay still. Another death. The third in less than 4 minutes. The tea-shop had become a slaughterhouse. Miss Marple's heart hammered, but she did not falter. She darted forward, leaning over the fallen man. No teacup this time, no saucer. But the foam, the smell, it was the same. Poison, delivered in another way. The killer was not bound to cups and spoons. The killer adapted, striking wherever the victim would be weakest. She looked up at the villagers crowding around the doorway, pale and shaking. "Do you not see? He is choosing at will. None of you is safe. The pattern is already set. Gasps, sobs, prayers. Some clutched their shawls, others their children. The proprietor blurted, "We must fetch the constable." But his words trembled. The crowd began to surge toward the door, desperate to escape. Miss Marple raised her voice sharply. "Stop! Scatter, and he will pick you off like birds in a field. That is what he wants. He wants to panic. He wants shadows to hide in. Stay together, or you sign your own death. The villagers froze, torn between fear of her warning and fear of remaining. Marple's eyes flicked quickly from face to face, reading them as she always did. The twitch of a hand, the flicker of an eye, the false calm of one who hides too much. And then she saw it, just for a heartbeat. A man at the corner table, his gaze not on the corpses, not on the crowd, but on her, measuring her, watching how she pieced it together. The faintest curl of satisfaction at the corner of his mouth before it vanished. He knew she had noticed. He knew she was close. Her blood chilled. He would come for her next. Even as the thought formed, a chair crashed behind her. Someone lunged in the chaos, a knife flashing in the lamplight. She twisted sideways just in time, the blade tearing her shawl instead of her throat. The crowd shrieked. Men leapt forward, wrestling the assailant back. The knife clattered to the floor, skittering beneath a table, but the attacker melted into the press of bodies, gone before his face could be clearly seen. Only the echo of the blade remained, and the tear across her shoulder where death had brushed by. Marple pressed her hand to the torn fabric, her breath sharp, but her eyes fierce. "Do you see?" she cried. "He has turned on me. Because he knows I have seen the pattern." Her voice rang out above the screams. "And I tell you this, I know who he is. I know the face of the killer." The villagers gasped, clutching one another. "Then name him," someone shouted, but Marple shook her head, her eyes sweeping the room again. "Not yet. Not without proof that all can see. If I speak too soon, he will slip free. But mark my words, the killer is here, among us, and he already fears the truth. That is why he struck at me." The tea-shop was deathly silent now, save for the sobs of a widow over the debutante's lifeless body and the faint drip of tea from overturned cups. The fear was suffocating, but so too was the knowledge that the danger was not finished. Miss Marple stood in the center, shawl torn, hand steady, her eyes sharp. 3 dead in minutes, 1 attempt on her own life, and the night had only begun. She drew herself upright, her frail frame seeming taller in the candlelight. "Stay close, do not touch a thing, and watch every face as I do. The killer knows I am on his trail, and I know this, he will strike again before the hour is out." The tea-shop was a battlefield of overturned chairs, shattered crockery, and pale faces frozen in fear. 3 bodies lay still. The Ashen Debutante collapsed in her gown, the matron sprawled in her overturned chair, and the old man at the doorway, his stick resting beside his lifeless hand. The coppery tang of fear mixed with the bitter trace of almonds, thickening the air until it was almost unbreathable. Miss Marple stood in the center, her shawl torn from the knife attack, her eyes sharp despite the pallor of her face. She knew the truth already. This was no random spree. It was a pattern, a deliberate rhythm of death, and she had only minutes to break it before the next note was struck. "Stay where you are," she commanded, her frail voice carrying like a whip crack. "No one leaves, no one drinks, no one eats. He is not finished." Her words stopped the crowd's frantic movements. People froze, trembling, clutching one another, but they listened. Terror made them malleable. Terror made them hers to direct. Constable Green, panting and red-faced, shoved through the crowd, his cap askew. "What's happened here?" Good heavens! He staggered at the sight of the bodies. 3 dead already? His hand went to his truncheon, but he looked more like a boy lost in a nightmare than an officer of the law. "You're too late for questions," Miss Marple snapped. "Your duty now is to keep them together. Bolt that door before someone flees into the fog and dies before your eyes." Green swallowed hard, obeying her command. He slid the bolts across the heavy frame. The scrape of iron was loud, final, and the villagers flinched as though locked in a tomb. Marple turned her gaze back to the tables. Cups stood half-finished, crumbs littered the plates, but the poison was not confined to one set of dishes. No, the killer had moved between them, precise and bold. The debutante had been targeted first, young, beautiful, the center of attention. Then the matron, older, loud, quick to gossip. Then the old man in the doorway, chosen to collapse where all would see. Each victim is different, but each is chosen for impact. The pattern was not about opportunity, it was about spectacle. Her eyes narrowed. "He is sending a message," she murmured. "Not to you, but to me. He knew I was here. He struck, knowing I would notice. He struck so that I could see the design." She raised her voice. "Do you not understand? This is not mere murder. This is a demonstration. He wants us to be afraid. He wants me to be afraid." Gasps rippled through the villagers. "Afraid of what?" "Why, you, Miss Marple." She ignored the questions. Her gaze swept the room again. She could feel it. One pair of eyes too fixed on her, one face too calm. Somewhere among the trembling villagers sat the wolf in shepherd's clothing. Before she could speak, a cry rang out from the corner. A young maid, barely 16, staggered back from her chair, clutching her throat. She gagged, her eyes rolling. Her mistress shrieked, grabbing her arm. "She's poisoned!" The crowd surged in panic, but Miss Marple was there first, forcing the girl's mouth open. She sniffed quickly. No almonds, no poison, only hysteria. The maid collapsed into sobs, her body shaking, but her lips were clean. Marple looked up sharply. "Not poison, not yet, but you see how easily it spreads. One scream, and you all believe the next corpse is already falling." The villagers muttered, some ashamed, some still trembling. Marple rose, her voice harsh. "That is his second weapon, fear. He kills with poison and blade, but he also kills with panic. If you let it rule you, he will not need to lift another cup. You will trample each other to death," Constable Green tried to rally. "We must search them all. Line them up." His voice cracked. He looked at Marple, desperate for guidance. She shook her head. "You'll find nothing. He is too careful, too clever. He will not carry the vial in his pocket like a fool. No, the truth lies not in his possessions, but in his pattern." The villagers leaned closer, desperate for direction. Marple continued, her words clipped and fierce. 3 dead. 3 different types, youth, gossip, and elder. Do you not see? He strikes where the eyes will linger longest. He chooses victims who command notice, and his next will be the same. Someone prominent. Someone whose death will ripple through every family in this room, gasps, cries, sobs. Faces turned to one another, whispering names. The doctor's wife, the vicar's son, the magistrate's clerk. Panic threatened again. Marple raised her hand sharply. "Enough!" He hears every whisper. He measures your fear. Do not give him that power. Her eyes burned as she scanned them once more. She saw fear, yes. She saw guilt, too. But beneath guilt, she saw satisfaction in one face. A flicker too quickly suppressed. "He knows I've seen him," she thought. "He knows." The debutante's body twitched suddenly, startling a scream from her mother. But it was only the shifting weight of death. Miss Marple bent, examining the floor. Spilled tea had seeped into the boards, staining them dark. But there, beneath the table, lay a scrap of paper, folded small as though dropped in haste. She lifted it with trembling fingers, unfolding it carefully. Scrawled in jagged ink were words that froze her blood. 3 fell, more before dawn, even you, Miss Marple. The villagers gasped as she held the note aloft. Some shrieked. Others clutched one another, crossing themselves. The words were proof, a direct threat. She spoke over the noise, her voice iron. He names me openly. Do you not see? He does not fear me. He wants me to know. He has set me as his final prize. The crowd wailed, fear redoubling. Briggs slammed the truncheon against the floor, shouting for silence, but his face was pale. Miss Marple folded the note, slipping it into her pocket. You see the truth. He will kill again, and soon, perhaps in minutes. You must watch, you must listen, you must hold your courage, or you will fall into his hand as surely as if you fed him your throat. The maid sobbed. The widow moaned. The boy clung to his mother. Panic pressed against the walls like a rising tide. Miss Marple stepped to the altar, raising her lantern high. Her voice rang with cold authority. I will not let him win. I will stand here until he strikes again, and when he does, his mask will break. He thinks I'm frail, he thinks me blind, but I see too much, and when I name him, you will all see it too. The crowd hushed, trembling. Some nodded, clinging to her steadiness like a lifeline. Others glanced nervously at their neighbors, suspicion gnawing. The killer was still among them, watching, waiting, and Miss Marple knew he would not wait long. Her shawl was torn, her arm still ached from the knife's near miss, but she stood tall in the lantern light, her shadow stretching across the corpses at her feet. The message was clear. She was not only the observer, she was the quarry, and the hunt had only just begun. The villagers huddled in the tea shop, pressed together like frightened animals in a pen. 3 bodies still lay where they had fallen, covered now with shawls and coats, but the sight of those shrouded forms hung over the survivors like a curse. The air was thick with smoke from overturned lamps, the bitter stench of almonds, and the tang of fear that grew sharper with every passing minute. Miss Marple, lantern in hand, stood rigid, her eyes sweeping the faces before her. She knew the killer would not stop. He had marked her openly, and that meant his next strike was already sharpening in the shadows. Constable Green tried to sound firm as he barked, "Everyone, keep still. No one moves without my say," but his trembling hands betrayed him. The villagers looked not at him, but at Miss Marple. She had become their anchor, and she knew it. "He will strike again," she said flatly, her voice cutting through the whispers. "Not in days, not in hours. Tonight, within moments, and his target," she pressed her palm against her chest, "is me." Gasps filled the room. "No, not you. It's madness. Why you? She saved us," the crowd murmured in disbelief. But Miss Marple's eyes were cold. "Do you not see? He killed the debutante for beauty, the matron for gossip, the old man for age. Each death is chosen to stir terror. But he names me because I saw his hand. I read his pattern. I am the one obstacle he must remove, and he will not rest until I am silent." The crowd quivered with fear, muttering, weeping. A woman clutched her child. A man swore he would guard her with his own body. But Marple raised her hand. "No. If you shield me, he will strike you instead. His aim is not only to kill, but to break our courage. He will turn your love into a weapon against you. That is why I must stand exposed. He wants me, and he shall try for me. But when he does, he will damn himself." As if her words summoned him, a sudden clatter rang from the far corner. A window burst inward, glass shattering, scattering shards across the floor. A stone rolled to a stop, and tied around it was another scrap of paper. The villagers screamed, scrambling back. Constable Green seized it with shaking hands, unrolling it slowly. His lips moved as he read, then he looked up, pale as chalk. It says, "Your turn is next, old woman. Before the clock strikes again." The room erupted into chaos. Some shrieked, others prayed, and a few pounded on the bolted door in blind terror. Marple's voice cut across them, sharp as a blade. "Enough! Do you not see? He is inside already. He does not need to send notes through windows. He is here among us, playing his game, laughing at our fear." Her gaze swept the crowd, landing briefly on each face. "He threw that stone himself, and you watched him without knowing." The villagers recoiled, turning on each other with wild eyes. "Who was near the window?" "I saw someone move. It's her. She screamed too late." Panic surged again, and Green shouted for order, his voice breaking. But Marple silenced them with a single cry. "Stop! Every false accusation feeds him. Every moment wasted brings his knife closer to my throat. You will hold your tongues, or you will doom us all." A hush fell, broken only by sobbing. Marple's heart thudded in her chest, but she forced her voice steady. "He vowed to strike before the clock. That gives us minutes only. Watch every hand, watch every eye. He cannot resist. He is already planning his lunge." The seconds dragged like hours. The clock on the wall ticked inexorably toward the quarter. Villagers sat stiff, staring at one another, their breaths shallow. A man coughed, and half the room flinched. Shadows flickered on the walls from the lantern light, stretching and twisting. Somewhere in that shadow crouched the killer, waiting. Then it came. A scrape of boot leather, a sudden rush of movement. A figure lunged from the press of villagers, arm raised. Steel glinted in the lamplight. A knife aimed straight for Miss Marple's chest. She twisted aside, the blade slicing her sleeve and grazing her arm. Pain seared hot, but she stayed upright. A cry went up from the crowd. Men hurled themselves forward, grappling with the attacker. But he slipped through their hands like smoke, vanishing into the mass of bodies, leaving only the knife clattering across the floorboards. Marple pressed her hand to the wound, blood soaking her shawl. The villagers swarmed around her, horrified. "She's cut! He tried to kill her! It was him! I swear I saw—" Confusion erupted, names shouted, accusations hurled. Green shouted hoarsely, waving his truncheon, but no order came. The killer had struck and vanished, sowing chaos once more. Marple's voice rang above the tumult, fierce despite the blood dripping down her arm. "Do you see? He struck only at me. Not the child, not the widow, not the constable. Only me, because I alone am his obstacle. That is his mistake. In his hatred he has unmasked himself." The villagers froze, staring at her, eyes wide. "Then name him," someone cried. But Marple shook her head, swaying slightly but holding firm. "Not yet. He has shown himself to me, but not to you. If I accuse you now, you will doubt me. He will twist your fear against me. But he will strike again, and when he does, all of you will see what I have already seen." Green rushed forward, trying to bind her arm with a handkerchief. She brushed him off impatiently. "It is nothing. A scratch. He meant to kill me, but his rage made him clumsy. That is how he will fall. His own anger will betray him." Her voice softened, though it still carried. "Hold steady. He cannot escape this room. His mask will fall before dawn." The clock ticked louder, echoing through the silence. The villagers sat rigid, staring at one another, their fear thick as fog. The bodies on the floor seemed to accuse them with every breath they still drew. And Miss Marple, bloodied but unbowed, stood at the center, her lantern casting long shadows. She was no longer merely an observer of human frailty. She was a prey-turned hunter, drawing the wolf's bite to her own flesh so that all might see his teeth. The quarter hour struck. The chime reverberated through the tea-shop, deep and final. No further attack came, but the warning had been real. He had lunged, and he had failed. Miss Marple raised her voice once more. "Mark it well. He has shown his hand. He has vowed my death and tried to deliver it. Now he must try again, for he cannot bear to leave me alive. And when he does, we will be ready." Her blood dripped onto the floorboards, but her gaze was steady, her voice iron. "He thinks I'm weak. He thinks me blind. But I tell you this, before this night ends, I will name him, and when I do, his reign of fear will be finished." The villagers shuddered, some whispering prayers, others clutching each other tighter. Green stood stiff, truncheon ready, though his hands still shook. The killer was among them, silent, waiting, perhaps even smiling in the shadows. But his mask was cracking, his rage exposing him inch by inch, and Jane Marple knew the trap was closing. The clock's chime still echoed when Miss Marple drew a sharp breath and forced her bleeding arm steady. Around her the tea-shop seethed with whispers and fear. 3 corpses lay shrouded, a 4th attempt had nearly cut her down, and now the villagers clung to her words like lifelines. She could feel the weight of their eyes pressing her forward. If she faltered, the killer would have them all in minutes. "He will not wait long," she said, her voice slicing through the murmur. "He failed with me, and failure burns him. He will seek another victim, someone prominent, someone whose death will shake you as deeply as these already have. We must move now, before his blade finds its mark." Constable Green fumbled at her side. "But we've barred the door." "We can't leave. If he's among us, better we stay together." Marple's eyes narrowed. "No, Constable. If we wait here, he chooses the moment. He thrives in stillness, in fear. We must take the fight to him. He will not expect us to move with purpose. He expects panic. We shall give him pursuit instead." The villagers gasped. "Out into the night? But he's waiting in the fog." "We'll all be slaughtered." Panic swelled again, but Marple raised her lantern high. "Enough. Would you rather wait for him to strike a child in front of you? Would you let him carve your family like meat while you cower? He has marked his next prey already. If we reach them first, we save a life. If not, their blood is on our silence." The words cut them deeper than fear. Slowly, heads nodded. The boy's mother whispered, "Then we follow you, Miss Marple." "Lead us." She did not waste another moment. With Green's reluctant help, she unbarred the heavy door. The night outside was choked with fog, curling thick and pale like smoke from unseen fires. The lane stretched ahead, muffled and ghostly. Somewhere in that shifting gloom, the killer moved. Somewhere, another victim was already marked. Marple stepped out first, her shawl drawn tight against the mist, her lantern lifting a dim pool of light. The villagers clustered close, muttering prayers, clutching each other. Green brought up the rear, truncheon raised, though his hand trembled. Each footstep seemed too loud, each shadow too deep. Marple's sharp eyes scanned the lane. The tea-shop's glow faded behind them. Ahead loomed the row of cottages, shuttered and dark. She stopped suddenly, her breath catching. "The vicarage," she murmured. "Of course. The debutante, the matron, the elder, each death a spectacle. Who is more prominent now than the vicar himself, whose word commands the flock?" Gasps rose from the group. "The vicar!" Not Father Edmund. Panic pressed again, but Marple strode forward. If we are swift, we may yet save him. The fog thickened as they hurried, lantern light swallowed within yards. Shapes loomed and vanished. A fence post, a tree, a cart left in the lane. Every sound set nerves aflame, the hoot of an owl, the snap of a twig, the creak of wood. Someone whimpered. Another muttered, "He's here. He's watching." And perhaps he was. Marple felt it too, the unseen gaze, the wolf stalking them through the mist. At last, the vicarage door came into sight, with a faint glow at its windows. Marple broke into a surprising run, skirts hiked in one hand, lantern in the other. She pounded on the door with her good fist. "Father Edmund, open, at once!" No answer. Her heart thudded. She struck harder. "Open, or your blood will join the others." At last, the door creaked open. The vicar himself stood there, bleary-eyed, a candle in his hand. "Miss Marple? What?" But before he finished, a shape burst from the shadows beside the house. Steel gleamed, arcing toward his chest. Marple hurled herself forward, slamming the lantern into the attacker's wrist. The knife clanged against the stones. The figure melted back into the fog, swallowed whole before Green or any villager could seize him. The vicar staggered, pale with shock, clutching the door frame. Marple pulled him inside, her breath ragged. "He marked you," she snapped. "You were his next." He struck even as I named you. The villagers crowded into the hall, sobbing, gasping, the narrow space thick with bodies and fear. The vicar set his candle down, hands trembling. "Good Lord, what madness grips the village?" "Murder," Marple said flatly, "and it will not stop until he is unmasked. You live because we moved quickly. Another will not be so fortunate." The crowd murmured, terrified, some clutching at the vicar's robes as though for salvation. Marple stood in the doorway, eyes scanning the fog outside. He had been close enough to strike. He had nearly succeeded. That meant his fury was rising, his patience gone. She had forced him into rashness, and rashness left cracks. She turned back to the villagers. "Do you see now?" He follows me. He waits for my step so he can strike in the next shadow. He knows I am closing on him, and he fears it. That is why he came for me in the tea shop. That is why he came for the vicar tonight. And that is why he will strike again before dawn. The words froze them. Someone whispered, "Who next, then?" Another clutched their chest. Marple's voice sharpened. "I cannot name the face yet, but I know this. He will not stop at one attempt. He will try again within the hour, and if we falter, more will fall." Constable Green raised his truncheon, his voice unsteady but loud. "Then we guard the vicar. Let him come. He'll not pass me." The villagers echoed him weakly, though their eyes still darted in fear. Marple shook her head. "No, if we sit idle, he will only turn elsewhere." The magistrate, the doctor's wife, perhaps even this boy. She gestured toward the child clinging to his mother. Gasps rose. The mother wailed softly. "No, not my boy." Marple's eyes were cold. "He chooses those whose deaths ring loudest. Every moment we wait, he selects his next with care. If we do not act, we may find the corpse of a child at our feet before dawn." The words silenced them into grim resolve. Green swallowed hard. "Then what do we do?" Marple's gaze swept the frightened faces, then returned to the fog outside. "We move again. We chased him. We do not give him the stillness he craves. Every step we take narrows his options. Every light we bear denies him shadow. He is one man. We are many. And I promise you, he cannot kill us all." For the first time, a murmur of courage stirred among them. A farmer nodded. The boy's mother kissed her child's head and whispered, "We will walk with her." The vicar raised his candle. "If Miss Marple leads, I follow." She drew her shawl tighter, her arm throbbing, her heart pounding. She knew the danger was greater with every step, but she also knew this. He had revealed too much. He had struck too boldly, too openly. His mask was slipping. If she pressed harder, if she forced him into one more reckless act, he would show his face to all. And then, at last, the masquerade would end. She stepped back into the fog, a lantern raised. The villagers followed, their fear still sharp, but tempered with grim purpose. The lane stretched ahead, pale and endless. Somewhere in that mist, the killer waited, his knife thirsting, his eyes fixed on her. And Jane Marple, frail but unyielding, whispered to herself, "Come then. I am ready." The fog swallowed them as soon as they stepped away from the vicarage. Lanterns glowed faintly, bobbing like will-o'-the-wisps in the damp night. The villagers clung to one another in a tight knot, breathing hard, eyes darting at every shadow. Miss Marple led the way, her shawl torn, her arm bound with a handkerchief still wet with blood. Each step was measured, deliberate, as though she walked a narrow bridge above a chasm. She knew the killer stalked them still, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. Constable Green muttered behind her, "This is madness, Miss Marple. We're bait in the dark. Better to hole up in the vicarage and wait for daylight." His voice shook with fatigue. "At least walls give us something." Marple's voice was sharp. "Walls only give him shadows. Do you not see? He thrives in stillness. If we wait, he will choose his moment. If we move, we force his hand, and forcing his hand is the only way to break his mask." Her certainty steadied some of them, but fear gnawed at the edges. The boy whimpered. His mother hushed him, her eyes wild. A farmer whispered, "He'll pick us off one by one." Another muttered, "Why trust her?" Maybe she drew him on purpose. Marple ignored the whispers. Doubt was as dangerous as knives. She had no time to soothe it. She could only lead. They came to a crossroads where the fog thickened into walls. The cottages loomed pale and ghostly, their shutters bolted tight. Marple stopped abruptly. Her eyes narrowed on one house in particular, the magistrate's residence. "Here," she said softly. "He will strike here." Gasps rose. "The magistrate? But he's away in London." "Then his wife," Marple snapped. "A woman known in every corner of the parish." Her death would echo louder than any before. She raised her lantern. "Quickly, before he reaches her." They hurried forward, feet crunching on the damp gravel. The magistrate's house stood dark, save for a faint glow in the upstairs window. Marple pounded on the heavy door. "Mrs. Whitcomb, open!" No answer. Louder this time. "Open, in God's name! Your life depends on it!" Inside, footsteps. The bolt scraped. The door opened a crack. Mrs. Whitcomb peered out, her face pale with sleep and alarm. "Miss Marple! What on earth—" "Get back!" Marple barked. "You are marked!" But even as she spoke, a figure burst from the fog behind them. The villagers screamed. Steel flashed again. The killer rushed to the door. Green lunged, swinging his truncheon, but the blow glanced off the attacker's shoulder. The knife plunged downward. Mrs. Whitcomb gasped. The blade struck deep. She staggered, eyes wide, a strangled cry escaping her lips. Blood soaked her nightdress as she crumpled across the threshold. The villagers shrieked, some stumbling back, others rushing forward. The killer wrenched free, melted into the fog once more, vanishing like smoke. Silence followed, broken only by the widow's choking breaths. "No!" Green cried, dropping to his knees, but Marple was already there, pressing her shawl hard against the wound. Blood seeped between her fingers, warm and thick. "Stay with us, Mrs. Whitcomb," she murmured, though she knew it was hopeless. The woman's lips trembled. "Why, me?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Marple leaned close. "Because you were seen. Because your life rang loudest, but you will not die in vain." The woman's eyes rolled back. Her breath rattled once, twice, then stilled. Miss Marple closed her eyes, bowing her head. The villagers wept, clutching one another, terror boiling into rage. "He struck again! We were too slow! She's dead because of us!" The boy sobbed openly. His mother wailed. The fog seemed thicker now, pressing close, heavy with blood and grief. Marple rose slowly, her face ashen, her voice trembling but firm. "Do you see? We were swift, but not swift enough. He marked her, and he delivered her death as he vowed. He will not stop until his pattern is complete." She raised her lantern, her shadow stretching across the dead woman at her feet. "He believes he proves his power with every corpse, but each body damns him further. His mask cracks with every stroke. Constable Green slammed his truncheon against the wall, tears streaking his cheeks. "Then tell us his name, Miss Marple. For God's sake, end this." Others echoed him. "Name him. We'll tear him apart." Their grief was turning into fury. The crowd pressed forward, their faces wild. For a moment Marple feared their anger might turn on her instead. She lifted her hand, commanding silence. "Not yet. He hides still among you, watching, listening. If I name him without proof, he will twist your rage, call me a liar, and vanish again into the fog. Do you want more corpses while you argue over my word? Number. You must see him for yourselves. Only then will justice hold." The crowd fell into uneasy silence, though fury simmered beneath. Marple looked to the lane, her eyes burning. "And you will see him soon. He has grown reckless. He strikes faster now, closer. Each death brings him nearer to ruin. One more misstep, and the mask will fall." The villagers whispered, fear laced with desperate hope. The boy's mother whispered, "But how many more before he slips?" Marple did not answer. Her gaze lingered on the dead woman's face, pale in the lantern light. She felt the weight of failure heavy on her shoulders. She had raced, and still she had failed. Yet she knew it had not been in vain. The killer had shown himself again, close enough for her to read more of his hand. His strikes bore not only calculation, but fury. He had chosen Mrs. Whitcomb not just for prominence, but because he had been thwarted at the vicarage. His anger had driven him faster than his reason. That would be his undoing. Green and 2 men lifted the body, carrying it gently inside. The villagers crowded around, muttering prayers. Marple remained outside, lantern raised, scanning the fog. She could feel him there, just beyond sight, savoring his victory. She spoke into the mist, her voice low but fierce. "You think you win? You think each corpse brings me closer to despair, but I tell you this, your haste damns you, and before this night ends, I will show them your face." The fog swallowed her words. No answer came, only silence. But she knew he heard. He had always heard. At last she turned back to the villagers, her arm throbbing, her body weary but unbowed. "We move again," she said. "If we stand still, we hand him another life. Every step we take denies him ground." Her eyes swept them, catching each trembling face. "You must trust me." "Do you?" They hesitated, some nodding, others too shaken to speak. But the boy's mother whispered, "We trust you." Others echoed her slowly, until the murmur filled the air. It was not courage, not yet, but it was enough. Marple lifted her lantern high. "Then come." "He will not stop, but neither will I." They left the magistrate's house behind, its door dark, its widow gone. The lane stretched ahead, endless, the fog curling like a living thing. Somewhere in that shifting white waited the killer, his blade still warm with blood, his eyes locked on her. And Jane Marple, frail but unyielding, whispered into the mist, "Come for me, then. I am ready." The magistrate's house loomed behind them, a tomb of silence now that Mrs. Whitcomb's body had been carried inside. The villagers stumbled back into the fog-choked lane, lanterns bobbing like faint stars in the gloom. Their faces were pale, their voices sharp, fear and anger tangling in every breath. Miss Marple could feel the shift. Panic was no longer a whisper in the crowd, it was a storm rising, ready to tear itself apart. If she didn't seize their terror and bind it to purpose, they would scatter into the night, and the killer would pick them off one by one. Constable Green tried first, shouting above the noise, "Stay together! Nobody leaves!" But his voice cracked, and the villagers surged around him, shouting, sobbing, clawing at one another. "We'll die if we stay. He'll cut us down like she was cut. Bolt your doors, save your families." A man shoved Green aside, rushing toward the alley, but Marple's voice, sharp as a whip, stopped him mid-step. "Go, and you will not reach your doorstep before your throat is opened." Her frail figure stood rigid in the lantern light, bloodied sleeve stark against her pale shawl. "Do you not see? That is what he wants. He feeds on your panic. Each time you scatter, he chooses another corpse. Stay, and you live another hour. Flee, and you die before you draw 3 breaths." Her words froze them, though muttering still crackled. She pressed on, her voice low but fierce. "He has marked me. He names me in his notes. He lunges for me in the crowd. His pattern is plain. Beauty, gossip, age, authority, each chosen for spectacle, each one meant to stir fear. But I am the last piece. To kill me, he must keep you panicked and blind until the moment his knife finds me. If you break, you hand me to him." The crowd shuddered. A woman crossed herself. A farmer spat into the fog. And for a heartbeat, the panic wavered. But then another voice rose, thin, shrill, cracking with hysteria. "She's lying. She leads him to us. Haven't you seen? Wherever she goes, he follows. Death clings to her like a shadow. She is his accomplice." The villagers gasped, faces turned, suspicion sparking like dry tinder. Green raised his truncheon, stammering, "Nonsense! She saved the vicar." But the whisper had already rooted. "She's the bait. She draws him near. She'll doom us all." A murmur grew into a chant, fear shifting dangerously into anger. Marple did not flinch. Her voice lashed through the tumult. "Yes, he follows me. Because he fears me, because I see what you do not. If I were his accomplice, why would he strike me? Why tear my sleeve with his knife? Why send notes vowing my death? No, he wants me gone because I am the only one who can name him." The crowd wavered, but the panic still simmered. She saw it in their eyes, the urge to turn on her, to end their fear by offering her up as a scapegoat. She stepped forward, her lantern lifted, her bloodied arm trembling but steady. "If you doubt me, then leave me here. Watch what happens when you scatter. He will fall upon you in 2s and 3s until none remain. But if you stand with me, shoulder to shoulder, you will see him as I do. You will watch his mask break. And then, together, we will end this silence fell, broken only by the boy's quiet sobbing." At last his mother stepped forward, clutching her child close. "I believe her. She's the only reason we're breathing. Others murmured agreement. Slowly the tide shifted. Anger dulled into grim acceptance. Panic hardened into resolve. Green seized the moment, barking orders with newfound strength. "Form lines! No one strays. Men to the edges, women and children to the center, lanterns high, truncheons ready. We move as one, and no one breaks rank." The villagers obeyed, desperation forging discipline. For the first time all night they looked less like prey and more like a watchful mob. Marple nodded faintly. "Good. If he strikes, he will strike me. When he does, you will see him. Hold your courage and do not falter." They moved again, a living wall of fear and firelight pressing through the fog. Each creak of timber, each rustle of leaves sent tremors through the ranks, but they did not scatter. Marple walked at the center, her lantern steady, her eyes sharp. She felt him in the mist, his gaze, his hunger. He circled, prowling, waiting for the crack. But there was none, not yet. Then the church bells rang for half an hour. Their deep clang rolled through the night like doom, and at that sound the mob fractured. A woman screamed. A man cried out, "He'll strike again now!" The crowd surged, stumbling, nearly breaking, and in that instant a shriek cut through the fog. A young lad at the edge clutched his stomach, blood spilling between his fingers. He fell, writhing, a knife hilt jutting from his side. Chaos exploded. The crowd screamed, surging backwards. Green lunged forward, dragging the boy into the circle. The killer was gone, swallowed by mist. The boy gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. He was right behind me." Then his eyes rolled back. "No!" his mother wailed, clawing at him. But Marple was already there, pressing her hand to the wound, her eyes fierce. "He lives, but only if you hold fast. Do not break. That is what he wants." She looked up, voice like iron. "Do you not see? He could have struck deeper, could have ended him with one blow. But he did not. He toys with us. He feeds on our fear. Every scream is his victory." The villagers sobbed, muttering prayers, clutching each other. The boy moaned faintly, still alive but fading. Marple's hands were slick with his blood, but she would not let go. "He fails because he grows reckless. He fails because we deny him silence. He is close now, closer than ever. Hold steady, and his mask will split." Her certainty stilled them. Slowly they drew tighter, forming a wall around her, the wounded boy at the center. Green shouted, voice firm now, "Lanterns higher! Eyes open! He cannot vanish if we see!" The mob lifted their lights, the fog glowing like fire. Shadows twisted, stretched. Somewhere the killer watched, waiting for the next break. But the mob did not scatter again. Marple rose, her hands bloodied, her lantern steady. She scanned the faces, searching. The killer had been at the edge, close enough to stab, close enough to retreat unseen. That meant he walked among them still, hidden behind fear. Her eyes narrowed. She had seen his outline in the fog, tall, narrow-shouldered, moving with precision. She would know him when he tried again, and try again he must. He had promised her death, and his pride would not rest until he claimed it. The villagers stood trembling, waiting for the next scream, the next strike. But none came. The fog thickened, silence pressing heavily. Marple lifted her voice once more, steady despite the blood on her hands. "We live another hour because we stood as one. Break again, and you will die. Remember Mrs. Whitcomb. Remember the boy at your feet. Panic is the rope he tightens around your necks. Refuse it, and you may yet see dawn." The crowd bowed their heads, whispers of prayer mixing with curses of vengeance. They were still afraid, but now their fear burned hotter, sharper, forged into fury. Panic had been their weakness. Now, perhaps, it could become their strength. The boy's ragged breaths echoed through the lane, his mother clutching him close as Green bound the wound with strips torn from a coat. Blood glistened dark against the lantern glow, steam rising faintly in the chill fog. The villagers stood frozen, their fear sharpened into fury, but still brittle enough to shatter at the next scream. Miss Marple knew she had pushed them to the edge. One more corpse, and the mob would break into chaos. And in that chaos, the killer would vanish forever. She had to change the game. "We cannot march as a herd," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "He stalks us like sheep, striking at the edges, driving us where he wills. If we remain in one pack, he chooses who dies next. No, we must turn the hunt against him." Green stared at her, bewildered. "You mean to split us? That's madness. He'll cut us down one by one." Her eyes gleamed with a colder logic. "No, you will hold them together here, guard the wounded boy. I will go into the fog alone. He expects panic, not pursuit. He will circle back for me, certain of his prize, and when he comes, I will see his face. Alone, I can move where he cannot follow without showing his hand." Gasps rippled through the villagers. "She'll be slaughtered. He'll gut her in the dark." But Marple's voice was iron. "Better me than another child. Better bait than butcher." She drew her shawl tighter around her shoulders, and the lantern lifted high. "He vowed my death before the clock. Let him try. If I fall, you will know him by his strike. If I live, I will bring his mask into the light." Green reached for her sleeve, but she stepped back, her eyes unyielding. "Do not follow. If you trail me, he will see the trap. This must be mine alone." Her voice softened for the first time. "Hold them steady, constable. Their courage will decide whether dawn greets us or a churchyard full of graves." Then she turned and vanished into the fog. The lane swallowed her within steps, the villagers' pale faces fading behind. Each breath seemed louder than thunder, each step a drumbeat on the damp earth. Shadows stretched and twisted, the fog pressing close like walls of smoke. Somewhere behind her, a dog barked once, then fell silent. The night was alive with listening. Marple moved slowly, her lantern shielded with her hand to dim the glow. She wanted him to follow, wanted his eyes to fix on her as prey. She knew he would come. His pride demanded it. He had tried and failed too many times already. His rage burned hotter with each strike. He would not sleep until her body lay cold in the mud. She reached the crossroads again, the fog curling like ghostly curtains. She stopped listening. At first, only silence. Then, soft, deliberate, the scrape of shoe leather against stone. A pause. Another step. He was here. Her heart hammered, but she did not falter. She lowered the lantern to the ground, its light spilling low across the stones. Her voice carried into the mist. "You are reckless now. You think each corpse secures your triumph, but your haste betrays you. Every strike leaves another witness, another clue. You cannot silence them all." Silence answered. Then a laugh, low, cold, mocking, rolled through the fog. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. "And yet I silence enough, old woman. 6 already, soon 7. And you are the crown of them all." Marple's grip tightened on her shawl. "You grow bold, speaking where all can hear. Your pride will damn you a whisper. Closer now. My pride will gut you." Her eyes scanned the shifting gray. A shadow moved at her left, tall, narrow-shouldered, precise. She held her breath, waiting. The figure advanced, slow, deliberate. Steel glimmered faintly in the lantern glow. A knife lifted in silence. Marple straightened, her voice calm despite the blade. "You failed with me once. You failed again at the vicarage. You failed with the boy. Each failure cracks your mask further. Do you think I have not seen you? Do you think your neighbors do not suspect? They will name you before dawn." The blade froze mid-air. Silence pulsed, heavy and sharp. Then the voice, harsher now. "They suspect all, and suspicion kills as surely as knives. Let them turn on each other. Let them feed my work." Her voice sharpened. "No. Tonight, they stand together. You struck too many, too fast. You forced them into unity. And that is why you will fall." The figure shifted closer, the knife's edge glinting inches from her shawl. For a moment Marple thought the strike would come, fast and final. But then another sound, distant but clear. The villagers, chanting softly, prayers and curses mingling, Green's voice rising to keep them steady. The killer stiffened, head turning toward the sound. His hand trembled. For the first time she felt his certainty falter. "You hear them," Marple whispered. "They no longer scatter. They no longer feed your shadow. You are the one hunted now." A hiss of rage, and the knife darted forward. Marple dropped suddenly, the blade slicing air above her shoulder. She snatched the lantern from the ground and hurled it at his chest. The glass shattered, oil splashing, fire blooming across his sleeve. He cursed, batting at the flames, stumbling back into the fog. His outline flickered, then vanished. Marple rose slowly, her chest heaving, her bloodied arm aching. She had not seen his face, but she had seen enough. His height, his build, the way he moved. She could match those details to the men among them. His mask was paper-thin now, ready to tear. She turned back toward the lane, her steps measured. The fog parted just enough to reveal the glow of the villagers' lanterns ahead. Their voices carried faintly, "Miss Marple, Miss Marple." They were waiting, holding their fragile courage. She stepped into their light, her shawl scorched, her lantern gone, but her eyes bright. Gasps rose as they rushed to her. "You live! Did he strike? Did you see him?" Green seized her arm, his face pale with relief. "Dear God, woman, you went into the fog alone." She raised her hand, silencing them. "I faced him. He came as I knew he would. He tried, and he failed again. His rage is his weakness. His pride blinds him. And I tell you this, I know enough now to see his mask crack. His face will be revealed before dawn." The villagers shuddered, some clutching each other, others staring into the fog with newfound hate. Green gripped his truncheon tighter, jaw set. "Then let him come." "We'll be ready." Marple looked at the wounded boy, still breathing shallowly, his mother's arms wrapped tight around him. She placed a bloodied hand on the woman's shoulder. "He will not take another child. Not while I stand." The fog curled thicker around them, but the villagers stood firmer now, their lanterns raised higher. The killer still prowled, still watched, but his dominance had cracked. Miss Marple had gone into the fog alone, faced him, and returned alive. And in that return, the village had found a sliver of courage. Marple straightened, her voice carrying through the mist. "We move again. We do not wait for him. We drag him into the light, step by step, until his mask splits before every eye. He has made me his quarry, so let him follow, and when he strikes again, you will all see his face." The fog had thickened into a pale wall, pressing close on every side. The villagers clung to one another in the lane, lanterns held high, their breaths quick and shallow. Miss Marple, shawl scorched from her confrontation, rejoined them with blood on her sleeve and soot on her hands. Her return, alone, alive, had stilled their panic for the moment, but fear still coiled in every glance. They knew the killer circled them still, somewhere just beyond the lantern glow. "He struck again, didn't he?" Green demanded, his voice hoarse. "You saw him?" Marple nodded. "I saw enough." Her eyes swept over the crowd, cold and searching. Tall, narrow-shouldered, deliberate in every step. Not a laborer, not a farmer. His body is trained for precision, not toil. He holds his knife like one who writes with a pen, not swings an axe. That is who you seek, murmurs spread. Some heads turned instinctively toward the clerk in his black coat, others toward the schoolmaster at the back. Suspicion sparked like flint on stone. "It must be him. Look at his build." "No, the clerk. He's the one with ink-stained hands." Accusations hissed through the fog, feeding fear. Marple raised her hand sharply. "Not yet. He hides behind your suspicions, waiting for you to tear each other apart. That is his second blade. Do not wield it for him." The crowd stilled, chastened. Green scowled, but nodded. "Then we narrow it further." "How?" Marple's eyes narrowed. "He spoke." Pride loosened his tongue. "He taunted me with his tally, 6 already." His voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of a man used to authority, used to being obeyed in rooms quieter than these. Not the drunken shout of a farmer, not the rasp of a laborer, but the measured tone of education. That is the mask he wears. Gasps. "The schoolmaster!" It must be. The villagers turned, glaring at the tall figure near the rear. His face was pale, his jaw set. "I've done nothing," he said quickly, voice tight. "Don't look at me like that." Green shoved forward, truncheon raised. "Answer, man!" But Marple stepped between them, her voice sharp. "Do not strike yet. He wants you to rush. He wants the mob to do his work." She turned her gaze on the schoolmaster, steady and unblinking. "Show us your hands." The man held them out, trembling. Lantern light fell across them, smooth, pale, uncalloused. No farmer's hands, no butcher's. Ink smudges clung faintly to the fingertips. The villagers roared. "It's him! Look, just as she said." They surged forward, fury boiling. But Marple lifted her voice again, steel in her tone. "And yet not enough. Look closer. His sleeve is unmarked. No scorching, no singing. When I struck the killer with flame, oil burst across his arm. He fled ablaze. This man shows no burn. He is not the one who faced me in the fog." The mob faltered, murmuring, ashamed. The schoolmaster sagged in relief, muttering curses. Marple's eyes swept onward. "No, but someone here hides a scorched sleeve. Someone here slipped back among you after the flames. He is close, closer than you dare believe." Green snarled, scanning the crowd. "Then bare your arms. All of you. Now." The villagers gasped, clutching at sleeves and shawls. Some protested, others obeyed. Sleeves were tugged up, lanterns thrust forward, eyes darting from neighbor to neighbor. One man swore loudly, "You insult us!" Another cried, "Do as she says, or we all die." The crowd erupted again, panic rising. Marple's eyes never wavered. She turned slowly, studying faces, gestures, the guilty twitch of a hand shielding cloth. There, just at the edge of the lantern glow. A figure stepped back, half hidden in fog. His sleeve, hastily rolled down, bulged unnaturally, as though concealing a burn. Her eyes sharpened. "Stop!" she commanded. The crowd froze. Her finger lifted, pointing straight into the mist. "You! Step forward." The figure hesitated, then obeyed with slow, reluctant steps. Lantern light revealed a man in a dark coat, his jaw clenched, his eyes cold. He unrolled his sleeve with deliberate calm. Beneath, the fabric was charred, blackened with soot. The villagers gasped as one, recoiling, clutching each other. Green surged forward, truncheon raised. "By God, it's him!" But Marple lifted her hand again, eyes locked on the man's face. "Not yet. Look at him. Not caught, not panicked, not pleading. He shows himself because he wants us to see. He flaunts the burn as proof, but not a confession. He will twist even this to his advantage. He is still masked." The man smirked faintly, lips curling. "An old woman's words. You call every shadow a mask. Perhaps the oil splashed when I tried to stamp out the fire you caused. Will you condemn me for being near your recklessness?" Murmurs rippled, doubt crawling back. Some nodded. Others shook their heads. Green spat on the ground. "You've the tongue of a snake, but I'll clap irons on you now if she gives the word." Marple's eyes blazed. "Not yet. His pride demands a stage. He kills not for silence, but for spectacle. If we bind him too soon, he will slip the noose before dawn. We must force him to strike again, here, before all eyes, so none may doubt." The villagers trembled, horrified. "Another death? We can't—" But Marple cut them off, her voice sharp. "Better one more attempt under watch than 10 more in the dark. Better he expose himself before you all than vanish into the fog until morning." Green growled, but lowered his truncheon. The suspect smirked again, stepping back into the crowd, his scorched sleeves stark in the light. "So we wait," he murmured, "and see who survives the night." The villagers shuddered, but Marple stood firm, her lantern steady. She had narrowed the field, cracked the mask, and glimpsed the face beneath. He thought his pride still shielded him, but she knew better. Pride had undone greater men than him, and before dawn it would undo him too. The villagers pressed tighter together, their lanterns glowing dimly against the fog. All eyes flicked toward the man with the scorched sleeve, his lips curled in a cold smirk, as if he had staged the moment himself. Miss Marple stood at the center, her breath steady, though her bloodied arm throbbed with each heartbeat. The circle was taut as a noose, fear and fury woven so tightly that the smallest spark would break it. Constable Green jabbed his truncheon toward the man. "Name yourself, and be done. You'll not smirk once irons are on your wrists." His voice was loud, but his eyes betrayed doubt. If he clapped irons too soon, and the man wriggled free with excuses, panic would explode again. The killer thrived in panic. The suspect, Mr. Keene, a solicitor's clerk, spread his hands mockingly. "My sleeve burned because I tried to stamp out the fire she made." He jerked his chin at Marple. "Is that not true?" Dozens saw the lantern shatter. Oil spattered everywhere. "Yet you twist it into a noose for me." "How convenient for you," Madam murmurs rippled through the villagers. Some nodded, unwilling to condemn without certainty. Others shook their heads, fury thick in their eyes. Green growled, uncertain, looking at Marple. Her gaze stayed locked on Keene, her voice calm but hard. "You reveal too much in your protest, sir. You were close enough to feel the oil, close enough to scorch your sleeve, and yet you did not cry out when the flames took you. You slunk back into the crowd like smoke, hoping I would not see. Only the guilty hide their wounds." Keene's smirk flickered, just for a heartbeat. Then it returned, sharper. "You speak well, old woman. But words are not proof. You need blood. You need spectacle. And perhaps, before dawn, you shall have it." A chill ran through the group. Mothers clutched children, men muttered curses. The boy's mother sobbed, whispering, He means to strike again. Marple lifted her lantern higher, her shadow stretching across the corpses they had left behind. He will. Because pride drives him, he has killed the debutante for beauty, the matron for gossip, the old man for age, the magistrate's wife for prominence. Each death is chosen to wound the village where it bleeds most. One more, and his pattern completes. One more before he dares come for me. Gasps spread. Who? Who's next? Tell us. Marple's eyes swept the crowd, sharp as knives. Think. Who remains that touches every family? Who, if they fell, would break your spirit completely? Green muttered, The doctor. Others whispered the same. Yes, the doctor's wife. Or the midwife. Without them we are helpless. Panic bubbled again, villagers clutching each other, glancing wildly toward the fog. But Marple shook her head. No, he has not chosen health. He has chosen faith, law, gossip, beauty, and authority. Each step is a pillar of your world. There is one left he has not touched. The children, the future. And who embodies them more than the choir boy, whose voice leads your hymns each Sunday? The crowd gasped in horror. A boy of 12 stepped back, eyes wide, clutching his mother's hand. She cried out, wrapping her arms around him. No, not my son. Marple's voice was steady, though her own heart clenched. He is marked. The killer seeks him next. Do you not see? Strike the child and the village shatters. The boy sobbed, burying his face in his mother's shawl. The villagers roared in anger, some shouting at Keen, others clutching weapons. Green thrust his truncheon forward. We'll not let him. We'll guard the lad till dawn. Keen only smirked wider. Then watch closely. If the boy dies, you will know I am guilty. If he lives, perhaps you chose wrongly, the crowd shouted in fury, some surging toward him, but Marple stopped them with a cry. Do not touch him. That is what he wants. If you kill him in anger, his mask stays intact. He will vanish into your fear. No, we guard the child, but we force the wolf to lunge again. Only then will you all see his teeth, the villagers murmured, torn between rage and terror. The choir boy whimpered, clinging to his mother. Green barked orders. Form a circle around them. Lanterns high. No one breaks. The mob obeyed, drawing tighter, their fear sharpening into fury. The fog pressed close, thick and suffocating. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a knife in the dark. Minutes dragged like hours. Then, suddenly, the church bell tolled 3/4 past the hour. The sound rolled through the lane like a funeral knell, and with it came the strike. A blur in the fog, a figure rushing low, swift, precise. A knife gleamed, flashing toward the boy. The mother screamed, pulling him close. The blade slashed, grazing her arm instead of his chest. She shrieked in pain. The villagers roared, surging forward. Green swung his truncheon, striking the figure's shoulder. The attacker stumbled, lantern light catching his face, just for a breath, just long enough for all to see. It was Keen. Gasps tore the night. It's him! She was right! The villagers surged, fury breaking. Keen slashed wildly, cutting a farmer's hand, then shoved through the circle. But there were too many. They hurled themselves at him, grappling, clawing, dragging him to the ground. His knife clattered across the stones. He snarled, thrashing like a trapped wolf, his scorched sleeve tearing open to reveal blistered flesh. Green drove his knee into Keen's chest, forcing him flat. The villagers pressed close, their rage boiling into shouts, "Murderer! Hang him! Cut his throat as he cut theirs!" The mob howled for blood, lanterns shaking, fists raised. Marple stepped forward, her voice cutting the fury like a blade. "Stop! The roar faltered, though fury still crackled. She raised her lantern, her eyes blazing. You have seen him strike. You have seen his mask break. But if you kill him now, you descend to his cruelty. Hold him, bind him, let him taste justice, not vengeance. That is how you defeat him. The villagers trembled, torn. Some spat, others muttered curses, but Green bound Keen's wrists with rope, knotting them tight. The killer laughed hoarsely, blood on his lips. You fools! You think ropes will hold me? I'll gut her before dawn. She knows it. She knows she hasn't won. Marple's voice was cold. Your mask is gone, mister. Keen, your sleeve burned, your face seen, your knife struck in sight of all. No word can hide you now. And before this night ends, I will make you confess the why, not just the how. Then, and only then, will this village be free of your shadow. Keen spat at her feet, eyes blazing with hatred. You'll never be free of me, old woman. You'll carry me in your dreams. Marple bent close, her whisper sharp as glass. No, you will fade like smoke in dawn light. But the faces of those you killed will haunt you long after the gallows creak. The villagers murmured prayers, some sobbing, others trembling in rage. But the truth was plain. They had seen the strike, seen the mask fall. The wolf had shown his teeth, and Jane Marple had forced him into the light. The villagers stood in a heaving circle, their lanterns quivering above them, their faces pale but burning with fury. At the center, Mr. Keen lay bound, wrists lashed with rope, blood smeared across his lip, his scorched sleeve torn open to reveal blistered flesh. He spat curses through gritted teeth, twisting against the cords, his eyes fixed with venom on Miss Marple. You think this rope holds me? You think dawn will save you? I'll carve your name in blood before the bell tolls again. The villagers roared with anger, some shouting for a noose, others for knives. Constable Green planted his boot firmly on Keen's chest, truncheon raised. Quiet, all of you. We held him till morning. He'll swing soon enough. His voice shook, though, and the mob's fury did not ease. They wanted blood now. Miss Marple saw it in every clenched fist, every wild eye. If she let them loose, they would tear Keen apart and lose the one chance to expose the full truth. Her voice cut like a whip. Stop this madness! Have you learned nothing? He killed with poison, with a blade, with terror. If you answer with the same, you prove him right, that fear rules you. Justice is not fury. Justice is revelation. He must be unmasked completely, before every eye, so that none can doubt. The villagers faltered, their shouts thinning into uneasy murmurs. The boy's mother sobbed softly, clutching her child. A farmer muttered, Then what do we do? Wait while he slits us one by one? Marple lifted her lantern, her bloodied arm trembling but steady. No, we trap him in his own pride. He is fed on fear, on spectacle. He craves an audience, and we will give him one. But not on his terms, on mine. Green frowned. Speak plain, woman. What a trap! Her gaze swept the villagers. We gather all remaining souls in the church. Every man, woman, and child. The killer cannot resist striking where all eyes watch. He has hunted in the shadows long enough. Now we drag him into the light. He will lash out again, because he must. And when he does, you will all see him for what he is. That is the moment we end him. The crowd gasped. The church? It's madness. He'll slaughter us there. No, no, she's right. He can't resist. Murmurs clashed like waves. Keen laughed harshly, his voice rasping. Fools! You'll herd yourselves like sheep into the pen, and I'll cut you down like mutton. She delivers you to me herself. Marple stepped closer, her shadow falling across him, her eyes like cold steel. Your pride betrays you. You cannot resist the stage. You will strike because you must prove yourself master, and in that strike you will fail. That is your nature. You cannot stop for a moment." Keen's smirk faltered, rage flashing in his eyes. Then he spat at her feet. "Try, old woman." "I'll take you before them all," Marple turned back to the villagers. "You see? His own tongue damns him. He craves spectacle. We shall give it." To the church, Green barked orders, rallying the mob into a line. They dragged Keen upright, bound and cursing, forcing him forward through the fog. The villagers moved as one, lanterns held high, voices hushed with dread. The fog thickened around them, but the steady rhythm of their steps kept panic at bay. The church loomed ahead, its dark spire cutting through the mist. The great doors creaked open, hinges groaning like a funeral dirge. They poured inside, the nave filling with trembling figures, the air heavy with candle smoke and fear. Green shoved Keen against the altar rail, binding him to the post with thicker ropes. The killer laughed softly, his teeth bared, his eyes fixed on Marple. The villagers huddled in pews, clutching each other, murmuring prayers. The vicar raised his voice in Latin, his words shaking. The boy whimpered, his mother holding him close. Every lantern burned low, shadows flickering like restless spirits along the stone walls. Marple stepped forward, facing the crowd. Her voice carried clearly through the nave. "You have seen his blade. You have seen his burn. You have heard his threats. But you must also see his truth. He kills not for revenge, not for justice, but for pride. Each corpse is his boast. Each screams his music. He thinks himself above you, untouchable, a wolf among sheep. But tonight we make him a wolf in chains, exposed before his flock." Keen snarled, thrashing against the ropes. "Your flock will tear itself apart. Fear is stronger than your sermons. I'll prove it." Marple's eyes narrowed. "Yes, you will try. You cannot help yourself. That is your doom." The villagers shivered, eyes darting between them. Green stood guard, truncheon ready, sweat shining on his brow. Tension thickened until it felt like the walls themselves trembled. Then the strike. A scream from the gallery above. A shadow dropped, rope in hand, a second accomplice lunging from the dark rafters. The crowd shrieked. A knife flashed, aimed straight for Marple's throat. But she had been waiting. She stepped aside, lantern raised, blinding the figure in sudden light. The villagers roared, surging upward. Green hurled his truncheon, striking the man across the head. He tumbled to the ground, knife skittering. The church erupted. "There's two of them. He's not alone." Panic boiled, but Marple raised her voice above the din. "No, this is his puppet. He sent others to do his work, to deepen your fear. But the hand pulling the strings is bound at the altar." All eyes turned to Keen. His face was twisted with rage, his body straining against the ropes. "Fools! Do you think you've won? I'll take her yet. I'll take her before your eyes." He lunged forward, rope biting into his wrists, foam on his lips. His eyes were wild, his pride burning hotter than reason. Marple lifted her lantern high, her voice like iron. "Do you not see? His own pride unmasks him. He cannot stop lunging, cannot stop boasting. That is the true face of your killer, vanity, cruelty, and nothing more." The villagers rose, fury pouring into shouts, prayers, curses. They saw him now, not the clever clerk, not the shadow in the fog, but the beast snarling at the altar. His mask was gone. Green slammed him back against the rail, binding him tighter. The second man, groaning on the floor, was dragged into the aisle, unmasked as a drunken youth paid to cause chaos. The villagers spat on him, their anger clear. But all eyes returned to Keen. He strained against the cords, his scorched sleeves stark in the candlelight, his teeth bared in hate. Marple's voice rang once more. "There is your wolf. Tomorrow justice will claim him. Tonight he is broken, his teeth blunted, his pride in ashes. He will never walk free again." The villagers roared, some in triumph, others in weary relief. The mob's fury ebbed at last, replaced by grim certainty. The trap had sprung, the wolf was caught, the nave of the church was a cauldron of fear and fury. Lanterns smoked in their sconces, casting restless shadows across the stone walls. The villagers filled every pew, faces pale and drawn, eyes fixed on the bound figure lashed to the altar rail. Mr. Keen, the solicitor's clerk, writhed against the ropes, his scorched sleeve blackened, his lips curled in a snarl. The groaning accomplice, dragged from the rafters, lay in the aisle under Green's watch, head bloodied from the truncheon's blow. But it was Keen who commanded the room, even bound, even beaten. His eyes blazed, defiant, feeding on their fear. Miss Marple stood before him, shawl scorched, sleeve bloodied, lantern raised. Her voice was calm, steady, cutting through the murmurs. "You have seen his blade. You have seen his fire. You have seen him strike at children and widows. But you must also hear his truth. He has killed not for vengeance, not for money, but for vanity. His murders are performances, each body an applause he forces upon you." The villagers shuddered, murmuring. Some crossed themselves, others spat. Keen laughed, harsh and mocking. "Performances? Yes, perhaps, but better that than your pitiful sermons, old woman. They will remember me. They will whisper my name long after your bones rot in the earth. I am no clerk scratching papers. I am death itself, and you delivered me the grandest stage of all." A hiss of outrage swept through the pews. A farmer surged to his feet. "Hang him now!" "End it!" Others shouted the same, fists raised, voices wild. Green lifted his truncheon, uncertain whether to strike or hold them back. The crowd teetered on the edge of riot. Marple raised her lantern high, her voice sharp as a blade. "Stop! Do not hand him his triumph. He wants you to become him, mad with blood. Do you not see? That is his last mask. Strip it away, and he is nothing." The villagers hesitated, torn, their fury trembling. Marple stepped closer, her frail figure dwarfed by the altar, but her eyes locked with Keen's, unyielding. "Tell them, mister." "Keen, tell them why. Tell them why you poisoned a debutante, why you gutted a matron, why you struck down an elder and a widow. Was it hate? Was it again? Number? It was because you wanted to be seen. You wanted to play God in the fog. You wanted them to look at you with terror instead of indifference." Keen's jaw clenched. He spat at her feet. "You think you read me? You think your brittle mind can grasp me? I chose them because they were weak, because they bored me, because they were sheep. I am the wolf. I decide who bleeds." Marple's voice grew cold, sharper than his rage. "No, you chose them because you feared being unseen. You killed the debutante because she had youth you never would. You killed the matron because she gossiped louder than your words carried. You killed the old man because his years gave him respect you never earned. And you killed Mrs. Whitcomb because her name commanded more weight in the parish than yours ever did. Each death was your envy, dressed as strength." The villagers gasped, whispers spreading like fire. Faces turned to Keen, horror dawning. The boy's mother sobbed, clutching her son. A man growled, "He murdered for vanity." Another whispered, "For pride." Murmurs hardened into curses. Their rage shifted, not blind now, but sharpened against the truth. Keen snarled, straining against the ropes until blood seeped from his wrists. "Lies! You twist everything. They will never believe you." Marple's voice rang clear. "Then show them the truth yourself. Strike at me again, here, before their eyes. Let them see the wolf bare his teeth." A hush fell. The villagers leaned forward, hearts pounding. Keen froze, chest heaving, eyes blazing at her taunt. His pride flared hotter than reason. With a roar, he lunged, dragging the altar rail forward, ropes tearing at his skin. His teeth bared, his body convulsed with fury. "I'll cut you down! I'll drown you in your own blood!" The villagers cried out, some surging to their feet, others clutching each other. Green moved forward, truncheon raised, but Marple lifted her hand sharply. "Hold!" Keen thrashed, straining against the ropes, his scorched sleeve tearing open, the blistered flesh beneath raw and ugly. His mask of civility was gone. No clerk, no solicitor's man, no educated tongue, only a beast, frothing and snarling. The villagers saw it at last, gasping, recoiling. Mothers covered their children's eyes. Fathers cursed under their breath. The truth was undeniable. The wolf had unmasked himself. Marple's voice carried over his howls. "There is your killer." Not cleverness, not power, only vanity and rage, a man who thought death would make him matter. "Do you see now? He is nothing but pride and emptiness." The villagers roared, their fury now clear, their fear broken. "Murderer! Devil! Hang him!" The mob pressed forward, but Green and two men held them back. Keen sagged at last, spent, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his wrists. His eyes still burned, but his strength was broken. He spat once more at Marple, his voice a rasp. "Enjoy your moment, old woman. Dawn will not wash me away. They will dream of me forever." Marple's gaze was steady, her voice quiet but final. "No, they will dream of the faces you silenced, not yours. You are a shadow, Mr. Keen, and shadows fade." The villagers whispered prayers, some weeping openly. The boy clutched his mother, safe for now. The vicar raised trembling hands, muttering blessings. The mob no longer trembled with panic. They trembled with certainty. The killer was revealed, his pride undoing. Green tightened the ropes until Keen groaned, then turned to the crowd. "You've seen him. You've heard him. He'll stand trial at Milchester tomorrow. He'll not walk free again." The villagers cheered weakly, relief and exhaustion washing over them. Some sagged in pews, others clung to one another, trembling. For the first time all night, the fog outside seemed thinner, dawn pressing faintly at the windows. Marple lowered her lantern, her hand shaking now that the danger had passed. She bowed her head, whispering, "6 dead and too many scarred. But the wolf is caged." The village breathes again. The villagers drew close, murmuring thanks, some kissing her hand, others blessing her name. She accepted none of it, her eyes fixed on the bound man snarling at the altar. "Do not thank me. Thank your own courage. You stood against him when he sought to scatter you. You held the line when fear was sharpest. That is why you live." The mob hushed, some nodding through tears. Marple straightened, her voice carrying one last time. "Remember this night. Remember that silence feeds cruelty, and fear gives it teeth. Speak truth, even when it burns. That is your shield against darkness." The bell tolled the hour. Keen sagged, bound and broken. The villagers rose, weary but alive. Dawn was coming, and with it, judgment. The first hint of dawn touched the stained-glass windows, bleeding faint colors into the nave. The long night was ending. The villagers slumped in the pews, their lanterns guttering low, faces pale with exhaustion. Yet every eye is still fixed on the bound figure at the altar rail. Mr. Keene sagged against the cords, wrists raw, his scorched sleeve hanging in tatters. He muttered curses under his breath, a broken wolf still gnashing its teeth. The air stank of smoke, sweat, and fear, but also of something new, relief. The village had survived. Constable Green stood stiffly before the altar, truncheon in hand. His face was hollow with fatigue, but his voice was firm when he said, "When the cart from Milchester arrives, he goes in chains. He'll stand trial, and the crown will see him hang. That's the law." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Some nodded grimly, others muttered prayers. A farmer spat on the floor. "Let the rope take him." It's no less than he gave the rest. Miss Marple, leaning on her lantern, did not join their cheers. Her eyes stayed fixed on Keene. He glared back, lips curled, blood on his teeth. She spoke quietly, her voice carrying despite its softness. "Justice is not in the rope alone. Justice is in truth, and truth we have dragged into the light tonight." The villagers hushed. She turned to them. "You saw his pattern. Each death chosen not for vengeance, not for grievance, but for spectacle. He killed the debutante because her youth mocked his obscurity. He killed the matron because her gossip carried farther than his words. He killed the elder because his years commanded respect Keene had not earned. He killed the widow because her name held weight he never would. And he would have killed the boy to strike at your future itself. Each murder was his vanity, sharpened to a knife," the villagers murmured, nodding, fury and grief mingling. The boy's mother sobbed quietly, clutching her son. A woman whispered, "So small a reason for so much death." Marple's eyes grew cold. There was no reason, only pride. Only the desperate hunger of a man who feared being forgotten. Keene snarled suddenly, thrashing against the ropes. "Lies! I killed because I could, because none of you matter and never will. I am the only name this village will remember." A roar rose from the crowd, curses and shouts. Green lifted his truncheon to silence them, but Marple raised her hand. Her voice was steady, commanding. "No, you will not remember his name. You will remember theirs, the faces of the dead, the voices stolen. Speak their names, and his fades like smoke. That is justice one by one." Trembling voices rose. "Clara Pemberton, Mrs. Dunscombe, old Mr. Harris, Sarah Whitcomb." The names filled the nave, soft at first, then stronger until the church rang with them. The sound drowned Keene's curses, smothered his laughter, left him snarling like a trapped beast unheard. He sagged against the cords, his pride starved of its last meal. Marple bowed her head, whispering, "That is your answer. Not rope alone, memory. They live because you refuse to let him own the night." The villagers hushed, tears on their cheeks. The boy's mother kissed her son's head. The vicar raised his trembling hands, blessing the names. The mob's fury had cooled into solemn resolve. The killer had wanted to be a legend. Instead, he would be nothing more than a shadow behind their voices. The doors of the church creaked open. Dawn's light spilt in, pale and cold. Two men from Milchester strode forward, constables in dark coats, shackles clinking. Green straightened with relief. "You're just in time." The men seized Keene, snapping irons around his wrists. He thrashed, snarled, spat, but the iron bit deeper than rope. They dragged him toward the door, his curses echoing, his pride shattering with every step. "You'll see me again. You'll wake screaming my name," he shouted, but no one answered. The silence was heavier than chains. Miss Marple followed slowly, shawl drawn tight, eyes sharp. She leaned close as he passed, whispering words only he could hear. Not your name, mister? Keen. Only theirs. You will never escape them. His face twisted, eyes blazing, but the constables dragged him into the daylight, his shadow shrinking as the door shut behind him. The church exhaled. Mothers clutched children, men sagged into pews, prayers rose in hoarse voices. Relief washed through the nave like a tide. For the first time all night they were not prey in the fog. They were survivors. Green wiped his brow, truncheon hanging loose at his side. "It's done, Miss Marple. God help me, it's done." His voice broke. She gave a faint nod. "It is not done, Constable. The rope will come, yes, but grief will linger. It must. That is how you honor them." She looked at the crowd. Grief, remembrance, and vigilance. Darkness waits always at the edge of the fog. Do not let silence invite it back. The villagers bowed their heads. Some wept openly. Others whispered prayers. The boy's mother clutched her son tighter, whispering, "We will not forget." The words passed through the pews, soft but firm. "We will not forget." The dawn light grew stronger, spilling colors across the nave. Marple closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. 6 had fallen, and many would carry scars forever. But the killer was unmasked, his pride broken, his shadow cast out. For now, at least, the village could breathe again. She turned, leaning on her lantern, her voice low. "It is over." For tonight the villagers filed out slowly, lanterns dim in the rising sun, their footsteps hushed on the stones. The church emptied, leaving only Marple, Green, and the vicar. The altar rail still bore the frayed ropes, blackened from Keen's struggle. The silence was heavy, but no longer suffocating. Green approached, weary eyes searching hers. "I don't understand how you saw him so clearly." "How did you know?" Marple gave a tired smile. "I have watched people all my life, Constable. Pride, envy, vanity, they are poisons as deadly as cyanide. He thought his mask was clever, but pride makes men clumsy. He revealed himself in every boast, every strike chosen for spectacle. It was never the victims who told me. It was his vanity shouting louder than he meant." Green shook his head, awe in his tired eyes. "You saved us." Marple looked back at the altar, at the ropes, at the shadows. Her smile faded. "No, I merely named him. You saved yourselves when you chose to stand together instead of scatter. Remember that. Unity is the only thing stronger than fear." The vicar whispered a prayer, his voice breaking. Marple gathered her shawl, straightening her back despite her wounds. She stepped into the dawn with the last of the villagers, her lantern, dark now, no longer needed. The fog thinned, fields stretching pale in the morning light. The night of terror had passed. The wolf was caged. The flock lived. And Jane Marple walked into the day, frail but unyielding, carrying the weight of memory in silence.